Hello. Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. One does not have to look much further than the fact that I choose to represent myself as a cartoonish villainy figure, and to realize what influence comic books have had on my upbringing and development. I was 7 when my brother, 13 years older than I am, he got tired of collecting comic books, and I had barely started the process of getting into recreational reading when this stack of comic books that he had been collecting on and off over years landed in my lap. Mind you, I turned 7 in 1973. My brother was 13 years older than I am and had been collecting comics for over a decade. So those comic books had names on them. I wouldn't read the credits of the comic books for another couple of decades myself. But looking back on those, I still remember some of those editions. I still have a couple around someplace. Or not in anything like collectible form, but I have them. And there were names in those credits of those comics that meant something. Ditko, Kane, Schuster, Siegel, Kirby, Stan Lee. To say that Stan Lee was a visionary might be treating it a little bit lightly. The contribution that he made to our modern forms of literature, his skill and adeptness as a storyteller is legendary, immortal to some degree. Even if, as we found out this morning, the man was not. Rest in peace, Stan. We owe the level to which comic books have risen as an art form, a form of storytelling, and a platform for social commentary have gotten to today to Stan Lee's contributions. He could have just written kid stories, and that would have been fine, but he wanted things that were approachable. He wanted things that grabbed people and concerned them. You know, you had the good folks over at Detective Comics, or DC, who were doing perfectly serviceable superhero comics, and their superheroes were paragons. You had Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They were larger than life. These people who went from a mundane identity to these costumed figures of legend. And that was good. That form of literature had its place, and those were characters that were iconic to the American consciousness. Stan Lee's the primary facilitator of the what if you had those people but they had the same problems that you and I had every day. Spider-Man. I had a hard time reading Spider-Man when I was young, because there are all these things that kept on creeping up in Peter Parker's life. And Clark Kent didn't have these problems. I mean, every so often he had to do some kind of building a ventriloquist dummy out of rock to pretend that he was carrying Clark Kent to hide a secret identity. That was a weird episode of the Brady Bunch. But for the most part, Clark Kent was a successful reporter and Superman was a paragon of justice, and that was comfortable. It wasn't until I got older that I appreciated Spider-Man's existence not being comfortable, Peter Parker having problems. Peter Parker's origin of his, not of his powers, but of his sense of duty being so incredibly tragic. And the fact that, yeah, he's doing the right thing day in and day out while the press hates him and he can't keep a date to save his life. He's always broke and trying to make ends meet, but it's always so hard because, well, in the middle of this perfectly average guy with problems life, hours a day have to be spent web swinging, saving people from danger, stopping crimes. The amount of stuff that would have happened if Spider-Man hadn't been there to stop it was enough to keep Peter Parker moving on, unable to profit from his superhero life and unable to manage in his mundane one. When Peter Parker had a triumph, it was a triumph. Not the Spider-Man had triumphs all the time. He beat people up and saved the day and stopped cars from falling on people. You know, every day as soon as the theme song hit. But when Peter Parker had a victory, you felt that. You felt that connection to, oh wow, he managed to do it. He managed to sell the photograph. He managed to get a better job. He found the girl of his dreams, and this one didn't die, and they can get married, and that's awesome. And of course, later folks would destroy any of that particular triumph in Peter Parker's life, but Stan Lee's storytelling approach to not just have these paragon heroes. You had the Fantastic Four as your paragon heroes, and they had their issues. There were arguments between them, and the dynamic wasn't always entirely functional, and that was interesting to watch. But then you had this run of characters who, well, the X-Men. The X-Men were a statement. It wasn't just that, oh, you've got these people with superpowers. It's no, these people are different, and everyone else doesn't like them. They had a stigma. There was prejudice against them. Stan Lee gave us this demonstration of the platform of comic books as a method of making statements about social issues. After the first issue of Black Panther came out, of which Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, I think, was the artist, were justifiably proud, they were informed by editorial oversight that, you know, that's a good comic and everything, but you need to have more white people in this comic. To which they responded, so this comic based entirely around black characters, you need them to have more white people in it. And yeah, just do that. So they relented, and in the next episode, Black Panther was beating up members of the KKK. Technically, they did exactly what was asked of them. The paragons given to us by Stan Lee's storytelling through Marvel Comics. Captain America is still a model of what a patriot can and should be to this day. I post clips from Captain America comics, not all the time, but the important ones when they count. Standing like a tree by the river of truth. And when the whole world tells you to move, you look at the world and say, no, you move. Those characters, their basis the messages that they told and what they bring to our modern social discourse even today. We lost someone who contributed a lot to our society today. He was 95. It was a good run, and he was in it up to here all the way through. They have filmed cameos for future Marvel films with Stan Lee well before this date, in the anticipation that this was going to happen at some time. It will still be seeing him pop up from time to time. A message from a beloved family member from the past. And while the man has left us, he managed to achieve a measure of immortality in that time. The characters that he created, the stories that he told us, the messages that he had to give us, those aren't going away. Now, more than ever, it is important to remember some of those basics. I got my moral foundations from my family, from the church that I was raised in, from the school that I went to, and from the comic books that I read. Few children's cartoons that might not have been the best source of moral background. Speed Racer killed an awful lot of people. That's just what I'm saying. And my dad went through the comic collection at one point in time. There were some things he found objectionable. He removed some of them. Not many of them. Those were my literature. I had a wall of science fiction to read and a whole bucket of other books that were going to come in and out of my life, but my foundation, my primer, my here is what superheroes are, that was that stack of comic books from my brother. That was Stan Lee. You have this young mind that is just learning that it can take information off of the page and pour it into his head. And here are robots and kung fu warriors and cyborgs and people with superpowers that can shoot beams out of their eyes. And underneath all of it, treat people right. With great power comes great responsibility. Do the right thing. Even if it is hard. Especially when it is hard, you do the right thing. I believe it was 2013. I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I was dressed in the original Uncle Drac suit. The one that's mostly on YouTube now, the original stuff. I need to do more. I was on the dealer room floor, and if you've never been to the dealer room floor at San Diego Comic-Con, it is worse now, but back then, it was still nightmarish. You can't move. You're shuffling forward a few feet at a time as this ocean of humanity is maneuvering through these artificial aisles and lanes between the vendors. And everything you have ever loved in popular culture and literature is jumping out at you on a t-shirt or a hoodie or a plushie or something. And I was a little awestruck. I was trying to get past. I have a problem with crowds in general. The people that I was with were off doing other things, so it was me, all on my own, in a cape, trying to maneuver through this ocean of humanity. I was walking backwards, which I should know never to do. I turned around as 3 or 4 people managed to make a corridor between me and this older gentleman who looked just as confused as I was. And he moved past and walked around the display of the original Iron Man suit, and he walked on and I walked on, and I realized I had just come 3 feet from crashing head first into Stan Lee. That was my brush with greatness, not colliding with it. I think I'll take that as a personal victory. It was a good Comic-Con. I haven't gone back since, really. I probably ought to at some point in time. I'm a role-playing guy, and Comic-Con is not a role-playing guy event, but still, it is a lot of fun. I'm going to miss his presence in the world. But I'm not. Because his presence in the world isn't gone. He is. And I hope that he rests in peace. But he left such a body of work and an even larger body of influence. The artists and writers of today can look back to his influence in their early life and career just like I can. And he's there. He will always have that place. Stan the Man. That is what we still have and always will. Excelsior. And farewell. Well, thank you for following me along on this particular absolutely necessary tribute. I was trying to figure out what to do with the video today, and I got on Facebook, and actually before Facebook, one of the guys in my Tuesday night D&D game posted the news story to our Discord. And yeah, I've been trying to come up with the words ever since. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you have your own experiences with Stan Lee having an effect on your early life or on your concept of literature or heroes or villains, leave me a comment. Things you want to hear me talk about, subjects you'd like to hear me cover, leave me a comment below. I'll love getting a comment. You will love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you do, hit the little bell notification button next to the subscribe button so you're alerted as soon as my videos become available. If you would like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. It allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, I am Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. Once again, Excelsior and farewell. And I'll see you next time in the next Matters of DeCorum.